One thing that I want you to bear in mind here is that we're doing a real simple spreadsheet. We're keeping things pretty simple, and I'm slowly introducing some of the basic features of Excel. So we're not going to go really in-depth to a lot of this, but for most of you, we probably aren't going to have to. This is a really simple application of very basic tools. It does get a lot more advanced than this. There is additional training available, but to get you going, to get you to where you're productive, this is all that it takes. Okay? In just a few more minutes, I'm going to show you some other things here. Actually, more than a few minutes, but in just a few more exercises, you'll be to the point where you're actually proficient and ahead of like 95% of the world, really, as far as being able to use Excel. But let's continue down our trail of functions and formulas. And one thing that you want to kind of understand that you're doing here, formulas and functions can get really advanced. I mean, they can get almost to the point that you're like a programmer because you're doing so much manipulation with the data. But like I said, what we're doing right now is some pretty simple stuff, but it's definitely a good place to get some real sound understanding of what's going on. What I want to do in this cell right here is, notice that it says less cost of goods. So in other words, I want to take this value and I want to pull out the cost of goods for that. And the way that I'm going to do it is because I know the markup for all of these. Let's say this is all retail sales. So I know what my markup is, and I know what I've paid on a percentage basis. So I'm going to take the value that is shown up here in L14, and based on that, I'm going to be able to calculate how much the goods actually cost me. And of course, we're going to do that with a formula. So we start with an equal sign, and then we're going to reference L14 because that's where the value is. So we do L14, and what I want to do, let's type this again, L14. There we go. And what I want to do is take that value and multiply it by 25%. So we'll do times 0.25 and hit enter. Now what that tells me is that I've got a pretty good markup because whatever I sold these for, it actually only costs me 25% of that. So this is my cost of goods. Now, I want to do sales commission, and here's what I do with sales. I know I pay 15% of sales. So I'm going to reference again the same value, L14, that's our total sales, and I'm going to multiply that by 15%. So equal sign, because we start all formulas with an equal sign, and then L14 times 0.15, and we hit enter. Now that tells me that this is 15% of that value, and this is what I actually paid out in commissions. Now let me show you a little different way that we could accomplish this same thing. Let's say that this 0.15 is a little confusing to some people. So what we want to do is select this, type 15, and put a percent sign. Okay, and then we hit enter, and we've got the same value, but again, this is a little bit easier for a lot of people to understand. So let's go ahead and change this one as well, 25%, and there we go. Same values, but now it's just a little bit easier to see, and I recommend that when you're working with percentages inside of formulas especially, this is a lot easier to catch, because if you're trying to find some kind of error or something and you think, you're suspicious that something is wrong, it's a lot easier to catch this and see that it's, 15% than having that 0.15 in there. Now, at this point, we got to do something a little bit tricky. Here's our net profit. Our net profit would be the sales minus the cost of goods and minus the commission that we paid. So we're going to take this value, L14, and subtract these two values, and that'll give us our net profit. So very easy, equal sign, and we'll just do L14 minus L15 minus L16. Okay, and it is basically, it's as simple as that. That gives us $21,771.15. Now, there are some situations that we're going to find out about later that something like this gets a little bit more confusing. Okay, but at this point, again, very simple tasks, simple spreadsheets, simple formulas. Now, what we need to do next is go ahead and format some of this, because you'll notice that some of these things look kind of like currency because they end in 95, but some of them don't, because like if there's a 0 for the cents, like the 0 doesn't get printed there, right? And in some of these cases, there's 3 digits there. It's not like we're buying gas here and you need to have a third digit. We need to have that rounded off. So in the next exercise, I'm going to show you how you can tell Excel, hey, these are currency values. Make them look like currency.